Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm joined, of course, by JP Mason. It's a Thursday, and I'm delighted to be here. John Paul. There's been a lot of developments last 24 hours, and I would say positive developments. We've been banging the drum on here about, breaking the silence, JP, getting the club round the table. And yesterday, what really piqued my interest was the Brendan Rodgers press conference. Often these things can be a drab affair where you find out who's fit, who's not, etc., etc. How's the fans going to get behind you? How's the atmosphere? All that stuff. But he said something I found really interesting when he was asked about, the fan movement, the action, the protests, and he spoke about unity, spoke about getting everybody around a table to resolve this. Lo and behold, I think maybe he'd been given a heads up by the PR team because an email dropped into the collective inboxes of all those people who have been signing the open letter, etc. So, positive developments, JP. We're going to be breaking the silence now that the club has broken theirs.
Well, it's about time, isn't it? It's not before time. It was getting to the point where it was almost as embarrassing for them as it was for us to continually have to, beat the drum about it, because you just look at the reaction. It was starting to become a bit divisive in terms of people saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this," or "You shouldn't be doing that," and there's all sorts of opinions flying around that when you read them, you're like, "Oh, well, that person thinks they're totally right, and that person thinks they're totally right," and there's different opinions, and that's never healthy, and it's never healthy for the betterment of a football club that we all love and spend a lot of time and money on, and you don't like to see that. I mean, I got a bit of stick in the comments when I told you that I'd got my Europa League package. Now, I stand by making that decision of my own free will. At that point, there wasn't anything from the Celtic fans. If the Celtic Fans Collective, say there was still silence, the Celtic Fans Collective, who I have signed up for, by the way, I might not have actually signed any document or anything, but when a Celtic State of Mind was put on that, I didn't call you and say, "Oh, I don't agree with this," or I want to stand alone from this. If they'd have said yesterday, full boycott of the game, I would have gone along with that. Had ticket or not, I would have gone along with that. I went along with the 12th man protest. Turns out I was actually late to the game on Saturday. Shame on me. So I didn't end up having to take part in the first 12 minutes. I had my own 25-minute protest from being late, but that's down to working quite a lot of hours in the previous 2 days, which I'm sure nobody wants to hear about, because God forbid I talk about music. So we'll just park that.
No, but JP, I don't want to park it. I think it's important. It really is important to point out the fact that you make it on here on a Thursday, despite having a really manic work life. We talk about work because both yourself and me are one of the lucky few who enjoy what we do. I worked for since I was 17 years of age until about 5 years ago in jobs I didn't enjoy. So there's nothing wrong with using your. And by the way, we're talking Celtic, we're talking music here. What's not to like, JP?
Yeah, I'd worked a fair bit of hours in the previous 2 days, so I was a half shut knife on Saturday morning, which led to my delay of getting to the game. However, I did get there. But like I said, if the Celtic Fans Collective, which I fully bought and still fully buy into, because it is a gathering of minds of thousands and thousands of people, it's not just a sort of splinter group of, extreme maniacs that are operating for their own needs or their own benefit. It's to try and benefit the whole club and to benefit change and to elicit change, and that's what it's been all about. And whilst we might not be a Brian Dempsey speech in the car park, it might not be that type of moment, but at least this moment has actually pushed them to sort of go, right, okay, we need to talk about this, because you're not going to go away if we continue to ignore this beating of the drum from the Celtic fans collective and a large amount of the Celtic support. We're not going to get away from this. We have to do something about it, and thankfully that has prevailed. And you know, I'm going to the game tonight. Yeah, I'm a bit kind of apprehensive about it. Kick-off time's weird. You're wondering what the crowd's going to be like in terms of numbers, based on everything that's happened. The fact that it's 5:45 on a Thursday night, Irish fans travelling, people trying to get off their work, and then how many people have bought tickets? Will there be a late uptake in tickets on the back of this this sort of almost like peace process that's starting between the two factions? Who knows? But I'm relieved that there's been some kind of give from them on this, because there just has to be. It was only ever going to get worse in terms of the protests. It was never going to dampen down, because everyone's still, as you start to look into the minutiae of that and seeing Kairat getting tonked 5-0 at home off Real Madrid. Now, obviously, Real Madrid will do that to a lot of teams, but they got beat 4-1 off Lisbon last week. You know, that's not a good team. And every week that goes past, you're going to have the double done of seeing how badly they're doing, and then you wait a day for us to play in the competition that we're in. And I know that's maybe, I know Brendan Rodgers wants us to move on. I get that, but it doesn't work like that when you've got the damage of so many seasons like this. If it had just been a one-off, it would be fine. But it's because we've seen this movie so many times before.
Absolutely, JP. There's no knee-jerk. There's absolutely no knee-jerk. Some good points coming through in the comments, not all in agreement with what's been happening. It's important to get them up and discuss them as well. But see the thing you mentioned there about Kairat getting pumped in the Champions League. The issue I've got at the moment is, I'll bring this up again. I'm looking back. There's the team. There's the team over in Germany playing Bayern Munich, and the team that got so close. And I look at that side, JP, and I think, you know what? That team there that I'm looking at is no perfect. Even that team's no perfect. But a few tweaks on that team is all that we needed. Unfortunately, because we didn't do it, and we didn't do it in time, even if we had got through the tie against Kairat, and we should have done, and there's nothing wrong with Celtic fans expecting us to win games like that against that level of opposition, the team we've got now, I wouldn't have been confident in the Champions League with that team. And again, that goes back onto the recruitment side of things. So it's important that we constantly go on about the failings, because they're ongoing failings. They're not something that even overnight can be resolved. I'm talking about next month, JP, doing 4 specials. Well, this month, actually, now we're in October already, doing 4 specials on This Is Acsom, where we're focusing on the stadium, the state of paradise. We're going to be looking at the board and the lack of communication. And although conceding what they do well, let's have a look at what they don't do so well, what they can improve on. And also looking at the academy and looking at recruitment. 4 massive big topics that, you know, it's not something that has just gone wrong this season. The stadium issue has basically been an issue for probably the last 20 years. But obviously, we know the stadium was rebuilt in 1995. But it's been an ongoing issue that we have not addressed, to the point, and I don't know if you got a chance yesterday to watch it. We played a video from Steve-O from Celtic World Order, where he's done his own kind of version of the Wonder, but he's really focusing on all the things that need to be improved. And we've been banging on about that for a couple of years now, JP. I think what really brought it home to me was when we were down in Anfield. We went down to represent Acsom down at Anfield for the award ceremony. And we were there early, so we had a wee wander about, and every single tile, every slab, every block, every inch of that footprint was celebrating the history of Liverpool Football Club. And I thought to myself, why don't we do that? Because when I do the wonder, all I'm seeing is breeze blocks, all I'm seeing is a concrete graveyard. We should celebrate in the history, the incredible story of this football club. It's a cinematic story, that from the origins to winning the European Cup, right up to the most recent successes, the faces, the personalities, you know, the managers, the triumphs, the teams. Unbelievable history, JP, should be celebrated all around the stadium, and it's not.
I saw the start of it. I watched maybe the first 6 or 7 minutes. I didn't realise it was. I thought it was a 5 or 6 minute video. Is it a condensed version? Because when I went to watch it on YouTube, it's about half an hour, isn't it?
We had a clip. We just played
right.
a clip.
Yeah. All right. So I started watching it, and I got as far as the letter missing on car park down in front of the superstore, but I also saw the sort of wear and tear, if you like, to the wall that says the Celtic Way in front of the Billy McNeill statue. And I'm imagining as the video progresses, and I will watch the rest of it, but I'd imagine as the video progresses, things that you don't think about when you go to the game, because you're just basically going to the stadium.
You don't see it. You just don't see it.
You're going to your turnstile. You're not. I mean, I don't go wandering around the ground when I go to the game. If I'm late for the game, like I was Saturday, and I've certainly not got time to go and check out what's happening at the back of the Lisbon Lions stand. You know what I mean? I'm into the corner of the North stand where the Jock Stein is, and that's it. And very rarely do I really go down to the front unless I'm meeting someone to hand over a ticket or get a ticket or catch up with somebody or whatever. It's usually you say we'll meet at the statues. That's the kind of reference point. But even then, I'm not walking all the way down the Celtic Way, so I had no real knowledge of that. But it's not my job to have knowledge of that. Do you know what I mean? It's like when, for example, I was going past the Barrowland maybe a couple of months ago, and one of the letters in the Barrowland neon sign was out, and it annoyed me. I was like, that needs to get sorted.
Yep.
And then when I went back the next time, it was sorted. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the type of thing that it's like, if you're going to look after something and having spent a long time in that venue on Thursday and Friday last week, I know how passionate the people are that work there. They look after the place.
Yeah.
It might be a very, very old building, but they don't just sort of let it fall into disrepair. I mean, I got shouted at for putting posters up with blue tack on the walls because they're like, "Oh, we don't do that anymore," you know, because it's we want to keep the walls good. And I was like, "I'm really sorry, I didn't know. Nobody told me, so I didn't know the difference." But so they're moving into the digital age at the Barrowland with digital signage and whatnot. So
the signage you told me, and this is, although diverting from Celtic, I can link it right back in. The signage you spoke to me about was an electronic sign at the entrance to obviously announce what was coming up and stuff like that. It's something I speak about all the time, because people look at these big stadiums, particularly in the States, where they use the media mesh and think straight away, "Oh, that's too expensive." Well, if you think about using it, not always, but using the advertising opportunities that would give you, if you think about the size, the real scope of the front of Celtic Park, all the way around actually, and the roads and the busyness of the roads, obviously around Celtic Park, it would pay for itself, JP, as well as allowing you to promote the next game, the legends, the history, the whole thing.
Well, I mean, you only need to look at, did you see the Adidas thing on the Sphere? Did you see that?
I did not, but this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I never saw
in Las Vegas. They did like a history of the Adidas football on the Sphere. So like from the outside, they just kept changing it, like to show, it was on a loop of showing like all the different balls over the years. It looked really, really cool.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
And then so you think about what you could maybe do with digital screens instead of those green tarpaulin, whatever it is, that hangs down. If you had, I mean, there's probably people watching this that be like, "Oh, do you have any idea how much that would cost?" And like, I don't know, but I know we've got a lot of money in the bank.
You could make it, but you could make it viable through sponsorship.
Especially if it was advertising. Yeah, you could have. They could put all their Adidas collections in the world up on those screens, so they're just constantly going round. And think of everyone's seen them from a distance. So
I want to see Paul McStay's pass to Chris Morris, starting at the entrance and ending up round the other side of the stadium. But the thing is, JP, you're talking there about the sphere. Was there an orange Adidas Tango for the games that you had to play in the snow? Was that?
I haven't watched the full clip. I would imagine. I would hope that there would be, because I remember being at a Celtic Falkirk game at Brockville where it snowed. And they had to get the orange ball out. I think it was 5-4 in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We're talking Andy Payton, Dovcek, Ryan O'Neill, I think, scored, John Collins. I remember that well. Were they not 4-2 up at one stage?
I think so, yeah. I think because it was close to me in terms of where my mum lived, I was almost allowed to go to Celtic Falkirk games because I would go with my pal and his dad. And sitting in the Falkirk end, whilst being a Celtic fan was a tough gig, but I did it because I wanted to go and see seeing the team. I mean, I've got kind of so used to it now, but like there was definitely, and you'll know, and anybody else of a certain age will know that those first few years of when you walked into a ground and you saw the players come out in the strip, you've maybe become a little bit desensitized to it now in terms of like, oh, I've been to so many games over the years, that it's not maybe got that same kind of not appeal, that's the wrong word. It always still holds an amazing appeal, but when you're a wee guy and you're seeing these guys that are like twice the height of you and they're walking out in a Celtic kit on a football pitch, it's kind of like, wow.
It hits you. It definitely hits you, JP. I remember, now, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, it was either John Kearney or it was Tom Minogue that spoke about that moment, but having only seen Celtic in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And then that moment, then the Technicolor, seeing him running on the park. And I always remember, wow, what an impact that would have been back in the day to actually see them in the flesh. You very briefly mentioned how busy you were last Thursday and Friday. I'm going to take this as an opportunity because yesterday when I was just going about my business, yes, I still listen to CDs, ladies and gentlemen. For the younger viewers, go and ask your mum and dad what they are. And I've got a CD player, believe it or not, which is almost 30 years of age, JP. There we go. And I pulled out one from the collection. And what I used to do back in the day where they used to give you tickets for gigs, I know you've got a wee folder there, I used to just clip them into the CDs. And interestingly enough, there it is, the Beta Band. And that, £10 a ticket, by the way. And that, for me, is top 3 gigs of my lifetime. At the garage, the Beta Band 25 years ago. And it was the Beta Band you were looking after last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And it was... Well, considering that I went to try and get into the last gig at the Liquid Room 21 years ago. So the last time they played a gig anywhere until last week was the Liquid Room. And I went along that night. It was December 2004. It was sold out. And I was like, maybe there'll be somebody with a ticket. And I stood outside and I was the only one standing outside. And a guy came out with about half an hour, 45 minutes to go till their stage time. And he was like, you looking for a ticket, mate? And I was like, yeah. And I looked it up in our system. That was £15 for a ticket. And I think I had 20 quid and I offered him 20 quid. And he was like, nah, I can get more than that for that. And I was like, oh, come on, man. They're on in like half an hour or whatever, like surely. And he went, nah, I'll get more than that. So we kind of both awkwardly stood outside the venue for about 10 minutes. And then a taxi, I thought surely he's going to just come over and go, aye, there you go, man, on you go. And then a taxi pulled up, 2 Japanese girls get out. One had a ticket, one didn't. And he just looked over at me and I saw money change hands, don't know how much. And he went, tell you, mate, gave me a wink and went in. And I was just standing outside going, great, brilliant. One of my favourite bands.
The tout wins.
They're about to play in that venue and I can't get in. And it was devastating. So to be there side the stage, walking them to stage from the dressing room last week was a huge, huge deal for me. I don't care what anybody says. If somebody in the comments is typing right now, here he goes talking about music, talking about himself, guy's self-indulgent. I could swear right now at you if that is what you're typing, but I won't. I'll refrain from doing that because I can't help the fact that I love my job. Sorry. Sorry that I was working with a band and getting to speak to a band that like I've loved basically my entire adult life.
Yeah.
And they were nervous the first night because it was their first gig in 21 years, but they got through it. And then the second night was like a victory lap. It was like, right, you could see them all psyching themselves up in their flight suits at the side of the stage and they were ready for it. And the crowd were amazing. Like people were like both nights. They had like 3 minutes of solid applause after the first song, the first night that they couldn't hear because they had in-ears in for the first time. So it was like everything was like blocked out. So they didn't really get the vibe from the crowd because they had these earbuds in to isolate their sound on stage. So me and their manager and everybody else had to sort of be like, the place was going mental for you. So it was really great. But just going back to football before anybody loses their mind, I kind of like, this is not anything like a deep dive, but do you not think it's weird that we've drawn 4 games 0-0 so far? We're at the start of October. Do you know when the last time that happened was?
Do you have the answer?
Yeah.
You do? Right, okay. I'm going to say...
Not 4, by the way. I don't even know. I got to this year and then I was like, well, there's no way that it's happened prior to this year because we won like everything, like not everything, but we won 9 in a row prior to these years. So I didn't go back further, but I got 3-0 draws by October 2nd.
Hampden season?
93.
So the season before. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's grim.
We drew 0-0 with Rangers at Celtic Park. We drew 0-0 with Kilmarnock at Celtic Park. And in the European qualifier against Young Boys, we drew 0-0.
Right enough, yeah.
So 3 0-0s, but this season it's 4. And that points to how bad the recruitment's been in terms of the forward areas, because if a game's finishing 0-0, you've not scored a goal. And what could we not do on Saturday? Score a goal.
No matter what happened, we couldn't find a way.
You're getting a guy up to speed that's barely kicked a ball for however long. You've got a guy that wanted to leave that you're hoping to get a goal out of on the other side. And then you've got a guy who's just arrived and not really had any real time to acclimatise. And the pressure now on Tunetke after his first 2 games and what he showed in those games is now like all eyes are on him. He's got to do something. The ball's getting shifted out to him all the time. But strangely, when I was looking through this, I did go back to 1984 and weirdly, going back to that season, 84-85, obviously, I do not remember that. But we drew 0-0 with Hibs and Rangers in the first 2 months of the season. We drew 0-0 at Ibrox, and 2 weeks prior to that, drew 0-0 at Easter Road. So it's weird that that's the 2 0-0s. That's the last time that we drew 0-0 with Hibs and Rangers in the first portion of a season.
The first run. Well, the point you make though, JP, when you sell Kyogo and fail to replace him, sell Kuhn, fail to replace him, Jota gets injured, fail to replace him, and then Ida leaves. And yeah, albeit we have brought Iheanacho in, there is a caveat to that, which is what you've said there. And Iheanacho's never scored 20 goals in his professional career in a season, ever. He's never done it. He's 28 years of age, going on 29. So you look at those 4 players. I mean, you could probably go further back and say, right, how did we replace Matt O'Reilly's goals and assists? Well, we probably didn't. But Jota, Kuhn, Kyogo and Ida, for sure. We've lost a lot of goals with those 4 individuals. Now, I think Tunetke, will definitely contribute, particularly with assists once he gets up to speed, JP. But, it's almost as if you need to hit the ground running if you sign for Celtic, because we're not going to bed you in because, we've sold the player and you need to go in and click right in there. So I think he's done remarkably well, albeit a wee bit quieter in the Red Star game last week. When you look at Tunetke, I said yesterday, although people might disagree with us, he's got 2 already, JP, right? The career best that player has ever had in a season is 19 for Leicester City under Brendan Rodgers. The season before that, he scores 10. So my prediction is he's going to score 20. He is going to replace the Ida goals. It's a bit bold when you consider that, he's played quite a bit of football and he's never managed it yet. What I would say in support of my theory, he's never played at this level. He has tended to play at a higher level of football. So I do think he's going to score 20 goals this season. Have you liked what you've seen? I think where he hits the bar at the weekend, he needs to score that. And maybe in the coming weeks, once he gets the sharpness, he will.
Yeah, I bumped into a friend of the show, Simon Donnelly, outside the ground and at the end of the game, and he was like, he's got to score that goal. That was his first. I more had a bit of a gripe that we hadn't played Donovan instead of Ralston.
Yeah. We're resting him. Do you think we're resting him for tonight?
I mean, who knows? He played at KG in the presser yesterday when he was asked about Colby Donovan, and he said, yeah, he's available for the squad. He didn't. Obviously, he's not going to say, he's starting. But I do wonder, will he start Colby Donovan tonight? It's a huge vote of confidence in him if he does.
Yeah.
Because that's basically saying, well, you're my guy until Alistair Johnston comes back, and then we'll see what happens when he comes. I mean, he said Alistair Johnston's going to be back in the week leading up to the Dundee game, so that's good news. That seems to be a little bit ahead of where we might have thought he would have been. I mean, I don't know. He got injured in middle of August. It was Kyra at home, wasn't it, that he went down?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I suppose that is kind of 2 months.
And you're hoping he clicks right back in to the kind of level of form and the sharpness that we're used to when it comes to AG. Big loss, absolutely a massive loss.
But
and then
you're going to ask me about Iheanacho. I mean, like I watched that game in Chapman's last week, where it ended up being quite a lot of us actually. I think agreed to beat one person, and it ended up there was about 7 of us watching the game, and it's weird because all I've seen in that pub is draws. So it was almost a certainty we were going to get a draw, because I saw the Atalanta game last season, the 0-0 at Ibrox, and then the game the other night. So even when we went 1-0 up, I was like, bet you any money they score. I mean, it was a horrible goal to concede, but I thought Iheanacho really, really like properly made us look like a decent team because of his hold-up play. Arguably should have scored more than one, and maybe that game, and you play that game again in 2 months' time, he maybe gets a hat-trick because he's sharper. It's all about getting a rhythm and getting used to it. But the way that he killed the ball and basically took a penalty, and it was almost on the penalty spot, and he just placed it with like absolute ice cold. You know, there was no kind of panic or anything like that.
No.
If you've got somebody like that up front that can do that sort of thing, then it does make you a little bit more confident. However, I do still feel like we are pretty light in terms of the squad, and it also harks back to the question that you were talking about. I was about to say, earlier on, that what would the recruitment have looked like had we, say we'd won the penalty shootout against Kairat? We only had 4 days to do our business.
Yeah.
What would the business have looked like had that happened?
This is where I've got an issue, because by all accounts, JP, the top 2 targets for the wing were the 2 guys we brought in. So we've actually brought in 2 left wingers. And the other thing with that is that obviously
Maeda would have been away.
Maeda would have been away. Dolberg, who would have knocked us back anyway. So I do have an issue with this, because I've got a comment I'm going to bring up in relation to echo chamber, not criticising Rodgers, etc., and I'm going to build up to that. But on the point of Iheanacho, I am watching a player here who's not 100% fit or sharp, but has to play, right? Has to play. And what I would say, a couple of wee things, kind of minor things, but look out for him, because I noticed him last week against Red Star, and then I noticed him at the weekend against Hibs, watching the game back. And what he does, right, and I'm not saying he is as good as or will become the same kind of striker as, but see what he does in terms of dropping deep, holding the ball up, finding pockets of space, and then when defending our own penalty box at corners and winning a lot of the headers. He reminds me in that respect of Moussa Dembele. Dembele was phenomenal at that. He never really got the credit for it, but as a centre forward, the amount of defensive headers he won from corners was frightening, right? Mm-hmm. And then that ability to hold the ball up, Samaras was brilliant at it as well. Just hold the ball up, slow things down, and obviously it drew defenders out to him, leaving the space behind. He's very good at that as well. Whether or not we've cottoned onto that and we're able to capitalise on it, I'm not so sure. I'm going to bring this up, Brisman, and what I would say before responding directly to your comment here is that often what I find, and it generally happens online on social media, is that things are said that actually, if you peel a couple of layers back, they're not true. So last week, I spoke to Willie Hockey on This Is Acsom. We speak to different people every single week. Some people didn't like the fact that I was speaking to Willie Hockey, but we did anyway. But there was a very specific reason for it. And then afterwards, people said, he never said much. That was a bit tame. Right. Watch it back. He calls the Celtic Board dinosaurs. He used the word dinosaurs. Says that they need refreshed, and actually spoke about Chris Traynor and Mark Keane as potentially being guys that should step up. He spoke about giving Brendan Rodgers a new contract and questioned why that hasn't been put on the table yet. He then looked at the stadium and said that it was a poor excuse to suggest that we couldn't upgrade the stadium whilst we're playing in Scotland. Yet another criticism of the Celtic Board. Then he spoke about the leak to the Sun newspaper and said that person cannot continue to work for Celtic. So again, criticism of the board. He spoke about the academy and the lack of players being produced through the academy for Celtic's first team. Again, a dig at the club. a criticism of the club rather. And then he also spoke about the poor recruitment, the fact that we have let ourselves down in the Champions League, not just once, but 7 times out of 9. And then he spoke about the statement and said whoever was responsible for signing that off should never be responsible for signing off a statement again. So I'm not quite sure what people expected Willie Hockey to say in that interview, because he didn't come out with a flamethrower, right? Which he was never going to do. He done it in a very balanced and calm manner. But he hit all the points. He hit every single point, right? And then on this note here, Brisbane says, another show no blame aimed at Rodgers. Wow, what an echo chamber. Again, let's peel a few layers back. Has Brendan Rodgers got away scot-free for the Kairat defeat? No. Did he get away scot-free for us losing the Scottish Cup final last season? Absolutely not. Has he got away scot-free by not playing players because he feels no obligation to play players that he's not signed? Absolutely not. Criticised him time and time again for that. And what about the fact that he never changes up the shape of the football team? We talk about it every time we have a bad result, JP. So the reason I'm bringing this up isn't to have a go at Brisbane. It's just that, come on, let's be balanced here. If we're going to talk, let's make sure we get the facts right.
Well, I mean, if you go to the most recent game, if Brisbane is talking about the recent game where we dropped points at home, I think when you look at the stats of that game, I read the long banger. I didn't listen to the long bangers. I actually will. I've meant to. I've just been kind of busy. But long bangers is a Hibs podcast that my mate Matty runs, and I saw their tweet after it, just going, "I wasn't pretty." You know, we were quite fortunate to get out of there with a point. You know, take a point at Celtic Park every day. You know, after the last couple of games, you know, drawing with Falkirk and getting beat off them at Ibrox, which was obviously, given how bad they've been, that must have been a huge dent to their confidence as a team. You know, to go and lose to a team that are almost bottom of the league and get knocked out of the cup, especially when they're a skiff of a hand away from going 1-0 up through Martin Boyle. But I mean, that you play that game another 4 or 5 times, Celtic are probably winning it 4 out of the 5 times. You know, we're not hitting the bar, we're not hitting the upright and all the rest of it, and it's clicking a bit better. The only thing is that, as I said earlier, it's now 4 0-0 draws, which it's quite alarming that there's been that level of kind of shot shy behaviour in games that we're not, and like you said, there is always that kind of urge to see what you could do differently in terms of the setup and everything else. And you must have known that that's how Hibs were going to approach the game. And it's just about finding a different way to pick the lock, I suppose. But although I missed the first 20-25 minutes on Saturday, everybody was saying we played well, you know, and then I didn't come away. There was audible boos at the end of that game. Now, what would be really good and interesting would be to find out and take the temperature of what the source of that booing was. Was it booing the referee for not adding on more time? Was it booing the referee for just his overall performance, which was deplorable? In terms of, like, I mean, again, you stack up the rate of the ratio of possession to fouls and all the rest.
Every 90 seconds out of possession, we committed a foul.
Yeah. Aye, remarkable.
Bizarre.
So there's that, and then, or was it booing directed towards the board over the recruitment? Was there any of that booing directed towards Brendan Rodgers? Was there booing directed towards a member or members of the team? You don't know. I stood there. I didn't boo. I just stood there, kind of a bit like, dropping points at home is never fun. So, you know, you could maybe handle a 0-0 at Easter Road and be like, right, okay, difficult place to go. We'll take the point and move on. But like, to drop points at home against them, especially when you know that Hearts are sharp, and I'm not having any of this patter about Hearts will fall away. I'm genuinely concerned about them.
Well,
I just think there's a lot of like juju and sorcery happening, that, you know, this 40 years since Love Street and all that. You know, I'm not really wanting to think about that too much, but I'm definitely looking at them as a concern, and I definitely wouldn't say McInnes hasn't got it in him to really push it as far as he can go. So yeah, dropping points on Saturday was a blow. But like I said, how do you analyse the percentage of that booing that was audible by everybody that was there? There was, thousands of people booed at the end of that game, but what were they booing for? Answers in the comments. If anybody could tell me, if you were there and you booed, what were you booing at? Were you booing the ref? Were you booing the manager? Were you booing the board? Were you booing the players? Were you booing? There's so many things. It's not like it was obvious. Like I'm not walking out of that ground on Saturday going, oh well, I know why there was booing at the end. I don't know, because I genuinely don't know. Or was it just a general disgruntlement with how things are? I don't know.
See, going back to this point here in relation to Rodgers and the point you've made about Hearts and McInnes, what I would say to Brisbane is, right, Brendan Rodgers is criticised on this show, but we just don't go studs up. We don't go over the top about it because, quite frankly, this is my opinion, he's the best manager we could possibly have at this moment in time. And his first spell at the football club, he won every single trophy. He never failed to win a trophy that he was here for, right? Second time round, he wins a double and a double. And he should have won a treble last season, absolutely. He's had one decent run in Europe, in my view. And I think that you could also look at the first season that he comes back in two halves. First half, really poor. But by the way, it reflected the transfer window. Second half, picked up, obviously. And I think that the January transfer window had something to do with that. Because, I mean, regardless of whether you think he was worth the money, eventually Adam Eder made a massive improvement to the team, and he came in January. Nicholas
By the way, as has been noticed massively by some people who are now going, Adam Eder might have scored the goal on Saturday.
Well, this is the thing, and going also on to your point. So what I'm saying there about Rodgers will be criticised. Rodgers will be criticised. I mean, if you draw 4 games, nothing each, it's not just on the players. It's just not on recruitment. You've got to look at the manager as well. But you made a good point. It's a collective thing to the point where you're not even sure what they were doing at the end of the game because it is a collective thing. And in relation to all of that, by the way, 4-0-0 draws, JP. We almost had another one against St Mirren. I mean, it was a very late goal that McCown scored.
So if that had ended 0-0, that would have been unprecedented in the last 40 years. 40 years.
And would still be sitting top of the league.
Which shows but it shows the
second top.
It shows the level of poor recruitment, because you go back to all those seasons, even if we were struggling, there was a player that we had that you would put your hat on getting a goal or more than a goal, and we just, at this moment in time, we don't have that person. Like Iheanacho is still TBC. You don't know what his end of season results are going to be. Right now, it's looking quite good, but like you said, he's never had a season where he scored 20 goals.
Nope.
And you've got another guy in Maeda who is potentially partially checked out. I really, really hope that gets I get proved wrong in that. I'm not having a go at the guy. I totally sympathise with the situation.
Rodgers spoke about it, didn't he?
Yeah.
He spoke about that element of it. The mental aspect.
The mental aspect, and Rodgers also did say that he has to shake off the it's no fair. I didn't get my move. I should be living somewhere else. I should be on treble what I'm earning now. My kids should be looking at starting school in Germany or whatever. All of that. There's all of that factors that you've got to take into consideration that probably had lined up. You're not just going to not have planned what's going to happen when you get to a different country when you've got a family. You're going to have things lined up. You're not just going to be like, all right, we're leaving now. I know we've not got anything sorted. We don't have anywhere to stay. Don't have any childcare, any of that. But we're just going. We'll get the next flight. That's all going to have been planned, and then suddenly rug's pulled away from that, and you're like, oh, I'm still here, and I can't go anywhere because I can't leave this place until January. For the next 4 months, I've just got to knuckle down, and then folk will be like, oh, he's getting paid well enough. It's like, I know, but it's all relative in terms of where you are in your career, in your job. It's a short career as a footballer, and that's maybe what him and his agent had mapped out, and the club as well, because they were obviously willing to let him go had they done their business properly. And that's what we're all raging about. That's just one aspect. That's one player. And then you've got Yang as well, who you're relying upon to play in Belgrade. And
this is my worry. This is a big worry of mine. incidentally, JP, right? So Maeda, Rodgers just spoke about it, and he says, look, you've got to do it for your family, do it for your teammates, do it for the fans. Absolutely, that's fine. It's like being on an aeroplane ready to go on holiday and getting told to get off the aeroplane. You're not going on holiday. It's like, what? To then readjust
on that note,
your focus.
A girl me and my mate Dave met in America last year. She was meant to be arriving yesterday with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend, there was something wrong with like his ESTA or whatever the equivalent is of getting into the UK, and he got denied entry. He didn't even get to leave the country. So, like, do you know what I mean? Imagine that. I can only imagine.
By the way, talking of which, I'm in Madrid at the weekend, and I get approached by someone who asks me about you. He knows you. Just the way it is, JP, just the way it is. But my point I was going to make...
He wasn't Spanish, though, was he? He was Scottish.
He wasn't. He was actually... He travelled over to Madrid and came to the event, and I did notice him on the airplane. He was wearing a King Tut's Wawa Hut T-shirt, and I thought... I wonder. And yeah, he knows you. But what I was going to say there, you mentioned Yang and Maeda, right? There's two guys. I'll throw into that, another 4. And then you get 6 who are training with the team every single day, sharing dressing rooms with the team, talking, eating, staying in hotels, etc., etc. And that's Simpson Pusey, it's Osmond, it's Inamura, and it's also Shin Yamada. So you've got 6 players then. How much of a squad have we got? Let's see. Well, we've got 24 registered for Europe, so we've probably got about 28 players all in. But there's half a dozen, right? Half a dozen of that squad, which is quite a high percentage of players who are unhappy. In and amongst that, you'll also have guys who are unhappy that they're not starting. Bernardo might be unhappy at the lack of game time he's getting, etc., etc. You could talk about that. Sinisalo's maybe unhappy to the degree of only getting a couple of games. But those 6 for sure, having not been named in the Europa League squad, JP, or they were on their way to Birmingham or elsewhere, in Yang's case, Birmingham, I think it was, and maybe Brentford or Germany for Maeda, and then they get pulled back in. That could be an issue moving forward. And I think that it's an issue that needs to be addressed in January. And in terms of Yang and Maeda, there's 2 parts to each of those stories, and that if they are leaving, you need to have something lined up coming in January. We can't run a season with 6 unhappy players, JP. It is a recipe for disaster.
And how do we keep doing this to ourselves? Just when you applaud the club for undoing their bad work, or not, that's the wrong way to say it, for correcting their bad work. There was a huge amount of players that we had on the books, and still in some cases have on the books, and the fact that they're out on loan, like Nawrocki, and you had Lager, Bielka, Palma still our player, Tilio was our player. Stockpiling these players that are given squad numbers with no real... I know it's not a defined science, like getting it right, but we have got it wrong so many times, and now we've just added all these other players into our squad that are of similar ilk.
Yeah,
Yamada, Inamura, Simpson, Pusey, waste of time almost at the moment. That's what it seems like. And then you've got the 2 players that should have left as well, and you're expecting them to perform for you week in, week out. And when you've already got a light squad in terms of the players that you're actually using, to have jerseys being used up by Callum, Osmond, Yamada, all especially in the forward areas, 2 players like that, where you're like, why did we not spend money on quality and have one guy instead of those 2? And that one guy is a guy that you would have start in the majority of games, whether it's Europa League or domestic. It just seems absolutely insane to me.
It's absurd, and we keep repeating the same mistakes. I remember in his first transfer window bringing in 3 centre-halves and I think 3 wingers. And you're looking at the centre-halves, Lagerbielke, who'll be playing tonight for Braga, Nawrocki, Nat Phillips. Bring in one quality addition, right? 3 punts, none of them worked. And then you look at the wingers. Who were the wingers that came in? It was Yang, of course, Tilio came in as well, and Palma. So we're trying to replace Jota with 3 guys, 3 punts. Bring in one winger of quality. And we don't seem to be learning from these mistakes JP. Loads of great comments coming through. And the first one I'm bringing up is AGSC Tech. Who is that? Who's that? Is that
Shevchenko? No.
I'm not sure. I was going to say
Shevchenko ever had hair that long. Maybe he did.
I was going to say Shap was that. Remember him?
Oh, yeah. Stefan.
Let us know. When Maeda has that 1v1 against Kyrat, and by the way, there's been a few others, is his mind clear? Or is he thinking I should be at a new club in Seville, Berlin, or Milan? I'm not in any way, shape, or form qualified to answer that question. But my thoughts on it, my view and opinion on this, JP, is somebody like Maeda, it's about instinct. I think it comes down to instinct. So if your mind's clear and you can just do it through instinct and not think too much about it, you score the goal. The minute you second guess, the minute there's any doubt in your mind, you can miss it.
Dare I say, Kelechi Iheanacho in Belgrade.
Yeah.
Traps that ball, finishes it, ice cold. There's no doubt about it. He's all in on Celtic. His full focus is on Celtic. He's been given an opportunity by Brendan Rodgers. He's wanting to prove himself to support, to the manager, to the people that have had faith in him. There was no doubt in his mind. Whereas you take a tiny little bit of doubt and introduce that to a situation like Stefan Chapuisat, if it is him, has just said, then that's creating jeopardy, isn't it? That's creating
absolutely, and
it might only be slight because people will be like, "Oh, he's a football player; he should be able to do that." And it's like, nah. I again to whittle it down to very, very, very different situations. But I beat a man on Tuesday at Tory Glen. Did well to beat a man, and I was through on goal. And I just absolutely skied it, like completely skied it. It wasn't even anywhere near the goal. And my head wasn't right. Do you know what I mean? My head wasn't right. I just maybe wasn't focusing. A lot of stuff on my mind, different things, personal things, anniversaries, all the rest of it. And I didn't do what I should have done. And again, it's a very, very, very different level. I appreciate that. But if your mind isn't right, then your ruthlessness might not be the same when it comes to doing your work. And at the end of the day, it is work for Daizen Maeda. It's not. Yes, he might enjoy it from most of the time, hopefully, but it is work. It's his job.
2:15, and there's the silence, almost like clockwork. Right, but the other example of that I remember was Kenny Dalglish spoke about it, and he said that when he's describing goals, he is describing what he sees on the camera because he can't tell you what he was thinking at the time because he wasn't thinking, and it's instinct. It's happened. He's done it. It's in. It's like Iheanacho the other week there. He scored that goal before he's thinking about it. But any of the element of doubt, as you say, JP, creeping into that player's mind, your second guess, you make a mistake. And this is the thing. It's just that momentary.
What he might have thought. Oh my God, what happens if I miss this? Like, this is such a big deal. What happens if I miss this? This is a really important chance. And he missed it. Missed one at Ibrox, missed one at the cup final, missed one at, and this is a guy and all those games have come since the end of February.
Yeah.
So they've not come prior to that.
Look at his goal in the League Cup final.
Yeah.
I keep saying it. If Bergkamp scores that, it's in the 101 greatest goals. I mean, the 3 touches. Nothing's gone through his mind. It's boom, 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 goal. Absolutely no doubt in his mind. But that wee element of doubt creeps in and you start second guessing. And it's just, fractions of a second, JP.
Or you could you could question yourself and your own ability. Like that as well. That's another aspect of it that you've got to consider as well. So
well, a player like him, you don't like to even consider for a moment that it's a downing tools scenario. You think it's more of a checking out, but momentarily checking out. No checking out as in I'm not going to try.
No, it'd be very, very obvious if Daizen Maeda was downing tools. You would be aware of it. And I don't think I've watched a Daizen Maeda that's down tools. I've watched a Daizen Maeda that's head's probably all over the place. And rightly so, because we know the detail. It's not as if we're in any doubt as to what's happened. We know exactly what's happened. It's been put out there. How many times before have we always wondered, like the Dedrick Boyata situation around about the AEK Athens game? We still really don't know what happened there unless I've missed it. But there's been so many times where players' predicaments, you've always been like, I wonder what's going on there, or wonder what happened there, and we'll find out when the.
That's why I love talking to ex-players, JP.
Well, I know,
especially off record.
No, I know, but that's why those nights are so enjoyable, because you get little bits of information that maybe from a manager, maybe from Martin O'Neill or whoever, and they kind of open your eyes to a situation, and we don't normally get that in the current moment, but because it's been such a bin fire of a summer, like, I don't think there was any doubt that truth had to come out, and it's come out, and everybody knows it. Managers spoken about it, players spoken about it. The club have obviously not said anything, but we know that they're not going to come out and be like, oh, actually, this is what happened and this is all wrong, because there's no way there's no way Brendan Rodgers is coming out and saying that that's what happened. There's no way the players coming out and saying that's happened, and it's not what happened. We know that's what happened.
Yeah. What I want tonight, I'm going to ask you the big question: does he start and where? I just want to see Maida walking on the pitch tonight with a bald head. I want to see bald head Maida tonight. Where he's got that look in his eye, JP, where nothing can faze him. I want a return to that.
Well,
Maida.
you said about playing the strongest, the best front three, and I think everybody's kind of on board with thinking that is the front three that started at the weekend. Mm-hmm. Maida, Iheanacho, and Tenetsky, but I'm astounded by the criticism that Balak Wisha is getting. I mean, people are genuinely writing that guy off already, which seems bananas to me. I just don't believe for a second that a guy that was given the send-off that he got at Royal Antwerp, who has been scouted for 12 to 18 months, comes in and just we sell him at the end of this season for 2 million and he's done nothing. I can't see that happening. However, there was an interesting thing that was said yesterday in the presser by Brendan Rodgers. In fact, the one thing that really did jump off, I'm not going to say the page, but I watched it, jumped out at me was when he talked about the cost. He's like, oh, I want to go and play for Celtic in this big stadium and, play in front of these amazing supporters and challenge for trophies and everything else. And he went, yeah, but there's a cost to that. You've got to perform. Yeah. You've got to perform. You can't just dial in a performance. And I'm not saying that's what Balak Wisha has done, but I wonder if maybe that was aimed at him or others. Well, clearly it was aimed at others. I mean, he's not saying that having not thought that about some of the players that he has. He's definitely that is a reference point to somebody or some people in the squad who maybe have been a bit shocked at oh my God, this isn't a kickabout. Like,
24/7. There's no let up. I mean, there's probably the night of a game that we've won, the night of a good result and performance, you get a free pass that night, but the rest of the time it's scrutiny. It's 24/7 scrutiny.
Yeah, you maybe get, like Casper Schmeichel said, you maybe get 24 hours to enjoy or wallow in your result, but then you've just got to get back on the horse and go again. And it must be relentless. Like, I know they're paid well and all the rest of it, but when you actually stop and think and go, oh my God.
The mental fortitude to always turn up, always show up.
Chuck in international games as well, and you're like, okay, yeah, fine, they're getting paid a lot of money and they live cushy lives and everything else, but their job is still to perform on a football pitch for 90, 120 minutes, and they see the fallout of that when it doesn't happen, and when they don't perform, and they see the level of scrutiny that they're under straight away. Like, Balak Wisha isn't getting any free passes at the moment. I mean, there has been some people that are kind of maybe lifting up their rifle a little bit and not training it on him, but just some of the comments you just see are just like, they're not giving the guy any slack at all. But yeah, tonight I'd forgotten when the last time we played Braga was, and I had to look up. It's 15 years ago. Like,
that was Lenny. Lenny was in charge, wasn't he?
Yeah, they put us out in Champions League qualifiers.
I was in New York. I went up. I was in New York looking for the parlour to watch that game. Actually.
Oh, the Parlour Bar. I've got a live CD of Athen Rye at the Parlour Bar. Did you get it? Did you get to it?
No, I was late. I was late, so we ended up going back and watching it probably on a laptop in a hotel room. But I do remember that game for that very reason, and rushing back and then being hugely disappointed by the result. But 15 years, wow. Yeah, we're talking about that Beta Band gig being 25 years ago. That's incredible. Balikwisha, let's have a look. How many games has he played for Celtic so far? So he's got a League Cup, 1 game, Europa League, 1 game, Premiership, 3. But obviously he's not been starting all of the games. So it's one of the ones you've got to give him time, JP.
2 of them he was played on the right.
Yeah.
One of them was at the end of a week that was, well, I think tumultuous is a as a understatement at the end of that week at Ibrox. You know, that was a traumatic week for both clubs for different reasons. And then you're playing on the pitch at Kilmarnock on the wrong side as well.
Aye.
I just think I'm not some sort of flag bearer for Michel Ange Balikwisha, but I'm certainly not willing to just be like, nah, he's a dud, get rid of him. He's not worth playing, you know.
We've got to persevere. We've definitely got to persevere and see him in his best role as well. Now, I'm really keen to also speak to some of these comments coming through, because obviously there was a huge development last night whereby the club, we've been talking about breaking the silence, the club did break their silence, and they did so through an email to the organisations who have signed the open letter. And it was going to be 29 days since the open letter was released tonight, hence the 29 minutes of silence. And what I would say here is, I know through reading the comments on this show and on social media that a lot of fans were against the silent protests, JP, but one thing that we've got to accept is that the decision was made in a democratic way within a steering group that has to be set up, otherwise decisions will never be made. But at the same time, it worked. It worked insofar as we got a response from the club who incidentally have not spoken to some of these organisations in months, have finally responded. And there's an olive branch, there's a meeting on Monday where obviously not everybody turns up, but certain representatives will be at this meeting on Monday. So I just want to run through this because there's quite a few questions in relation to that as well, and quite rightly so. So let me run through here. I'm going to start off. Sorry, my Japanese isn't great, but welcome to the show. Let's have a meeting, but stop your silence for the game tonight. Bumped by the board. We should have still done the protest. Now it looks like we have bottled it. Well done, guys. Well, no, I disagree. I think that with regards to this, with the two sides, and by the way, it's even wrong to talk about it as two sides. This is our football club. Let's talk about the board. Let's talk about what the fan collective are talking about. The board want one thing. The collective want one thing. There has to be, JP, in all walks of life, some form of meeting ground, some form of compromise. There needs to be a negotiation. So it's not just we says we're doing this and we're going to stick to our guns. You need to. There has been a compromise there. Okay. So you have offered a meeting on Monday. Our compromise is that we won't do the silences. And that wasn't agreed before they offered the meeting. That is in response to the meeting. There has to be a compromise. It's the only way that you can ever move forward.
No, absolutely. And well, why didn't they offer the olive branch ahead of the game on Saturday? Mm-hmm. They allowed that. I mean, I'm completely and utterly speculating, but I can only imagine they must have looked at it and thought, these guys are organised. The people that are doing this are organised and are fairly intelligent. I mean, like I listened to the Homeboys podcast last night, and Scott McCorry is on as part of the steering group. I'm not revealing any mad secrets there, and he's not revealed everybody that was there, but I absolutely trust that guy 100%. That the people that he was dealing with and speaking with in person are all people who aren't yahoos. They're not like folk that are, unreasonable or in any way kind of trying to do something for their own gain or for their own representation's gain, like whether it's a podcast or whether it's a supporters group, whether it's the Green Brigade, whether it's the North Curb, the boys. It's not about one particular individual or group. It's about that collective. So I think they must have looked at it and thought they've actually organised themselves really well here. to the point that this isn't going away. They're not just going to roll over and go, we beat Braga 3-0 tonight and everything's rosy, and or we win at the weekend. No, we're not playing the weekend, but like, you know what I mean? We are playing the weekend. We win on Sunday handsomely, and then that's a couple of wins and everything's fine, and we just move on and it's forgotten about. Because that's what Peter Lawwell said, in 2014? Oh, just keep the heat and we move on and we forget about it. It's like, no, because it's happened how many times since then, and it's happened again. So there's something wrong. And that the only thing I can think of is that they've went, these guys are digging their heels in, and they're ready for a long war if that is what it's to be. So we've got a couple of options. We either actually negotiate with them, you know, and try to come to some sort of understanding about the situation, or we continue to be silent, and it's only going to get worse. It's only because it would probably get to the point where, you know, in a month's time or something, they're going, right, full boycott at the stadium. And then you're looking at percentages of who's boycotting the stadium, because I don't know, I couldn't say for sure, but like, if you look at the away support, 75% of the away support didn't go until the 12th minute of Kilmarnock. If you did it at a home game, what's the percentage there of a full boycott? Because everyone, like thousands of people are represented in this Celtic fans collective. It's not as if it's just like a handful of people. So everyone, if everyone was like, right, okay, this is what we're doing, you'd be like, this is what we're doing. We're going to do it, and it'll happen. And then that's a really, really uncomfortable moment for them. If they were uncomfortable looking at their phones at Firhill, how uncomfortable would they be at an empty Celtic Park, or a 70 to 80% empty Celtic Park for a game that people have tickets for?
And see, you're talking about being organised there, JP. The 75% was huge when you consider. I don't rate Celtic fans. I don't rank Celtic fans in any way, shape or form. You're a Celtic fan and that's it, as far as I'm concerned. But the people that tend to go to every away game don't miss a minute of Celtic. Don't miss a minute, JP. And 75% of those individuals missed 12 minutes. They don't. They travel all over the country. They travel further afield. Not every fan does that. So in order to convince them that was a good idea, was a massive step forward, I felt, for the collective. In relation to the way that it works as well, if you think about even just fan media, we've got a fan media group at the moment with 55 members. 55 members, so that if the collective make a decision or want feedback or whatever, they can communicate almost with their own 55 strong media team, who can then speak on blogs and podcasts and put it on the social. Huge scope for that. And I think the club has realised that it's not going to go away, JP, but you know, everybody's going to be realising this massive word, which is compromise. Everybody has got to realise that happens. And I think that if you come away from the meeting, and I'm going to go back to the interview I had last week, or even talking about Brendan Rodgers, let's be balanced about it. Not everything is going to be resolved in one meeting. This is one step. It's one step. So see it after Monday. What we don't want is people say, oh, right, you know, like there, oh, you have bottled it. Nobody's bottling anything. This is a process. And that's one very important part of the process, is coming together. Brendan Rodgers said it at the press conference yesterday, and then it happened. That man has got some amount of influence, let me tell you. I want to know, JP, your starting 11. I'll give you mine. It might have changed in the last week, but Kasper Schmeichel is clearly the goalie. Donovan's at right back. I'm going to start with Kieran Tierney. I think I said Sriracha the other day, but I'm going back to Kieran Tierney. And it's all about having enough players in the team, you know, with that experience. Sriracha's quite new to the Celtic experience. It's at home. It's under the lights. I'm just thinking, you know, Tierney's done this. Get him back in. I know his form's not been great.
Yeah, but he didn't play at the weekend. So
I think he was
rested. That was with an eye on this.
Yeah, I think so. Even though Sriracha played well, absolutely hit the bar. I think he's good as an attacking option, and he's deceptively good defensively. Scales and CCV all day long for me. When you move into the midfield, maybe the controversial one that a lot of people disagree with, I'm playing Engels 6, and I'm playing McGregor and Nygren. Rio he might not make it fitness-wise anyway, but Rio doesn't make my starting 11. And then up top, it's the forward line that you said, Maid on the right, Tunetke on the left, and Ian Atchell through the middle. That's my starting 11, JP. And you said 3-0 hypothetically earlier on, and I'm going to stick to that because I like the sound of 3-0. See how I was whistling my S's like Stephen Presley there? Totally unintentional.
I definitely don't hold me to a 3-0, but
I'm sticking to 3-0. I'm going to be
that was a throwaway scoreline, but I just really hope that we continue the way that we played at the weekend, because you would think that would yield some sort of positive results if we do.
With a neutral ref, it might.
Well, that and the fact that, as Brendan Rodgers said yesterday, this team are coming here to try and win against us.
Yes.
So you know exactly the mentality. Was that the mentality from Hibs on the weekend? No. Their mentality was to just not lose. So this is a different kettle of fish tonight, where you can go. It was like Belgrade last week. They wanted to beat us. They were desperate to beat us. At home, their first European game at home, that was quite evident.
What I love about the new format is that until you're 2-0 up, everybody's going for it, hell for leather, JP, until you're 2-0 up. You know, because it's just attack. 1-0's no good enough, and we showed that last week. You've got to get that second goal, and in the meantime, they've opened up because they're trying to come back. I think this league format is brilliant for the entertainment value of the games.
It kind of leaves unfinished business as well, doesn't it? At the end of a game like last week in Belgrade, there's no home leg against them, so we don't get to go at them again, and they don't get another bite at us until who knows when. Could be 20 years until we play them again. I mean, when was the last time we played Red Star Belgrade?
Well, we played them, but it was in a friendly. Probably in a competitive game, you're talking 68.
Right, well, there you go.
The famous game that Junkie ran right, so he didn't have to fly to the away leg.
That's why more than. Oh, of course, I remember Patrick talking about that. Was it Patrick that brought that up last week? I think somebody mentioned that about
we spoke about it last week. I think
about Jimmy Johnson. But that's why, like, now with this new format, is like you really want to take the opportunity. I mean, I would have loved to have gone to Serbia last week. I mean, eye watering prices in terms of getting there. I mean, there's a couple of guys for the Easter House bus that went, and they were like, one of them, Andy, paid like £540 for flights. He was there for like 2.5 days. I mean,
these are the people that you're trying to convince not to go into a stadium and come. You know,
exactly.
that's the level.
Spend that level of money to go all the way to Serbia to watch 90 minutes of football. And I say 540, that was just the flights, hotels on top of that. You're talking probably thick end of £1,000 for 2.5 days of your life. But that's why I always kind of like doing my best to try and go. Like, I really wanted to go to Rotterdam a couple of years ago. We've got them again by pure chance. But I mean, that could easily have been another 20 years before we got Feyenoord away again. It just so happens that the fixtures fell the way they did. But like the same with Aston Villa, we may not play Aston Villa again for another 20, 30 years.
Am I right in saying that's the first time we've ever played them in a competitive game? Yeah.
Aye, so like I mean, that's why you want to try and push the boat out. And Bologna definitely is the one that I've kind of got in the back of my mind is, well, that would be really good to go to that. You know, if there was one that I could go to that was doable, it would be that. But yeah, Braga tonight. Well, we'll wait and see. I didn't really know about their domestic form, but apparently Rodgers said yesterday their domestic form's not been that great. Are they the team that play with that mad stadium that's got like a mountain, like it's got like one stand missing and it's a big mountain or something like that? Is that not?
I'm not sure. I was looking at their form actually this morning because I was interested to see Lagerbielke is pretty much an ever-present for them, JP.
Yeah.
They obviously lost their game at the weekend. He was playing. He's coming back. What I think about this, I think back to the game against Midtjylland where we were up against Vyachenko. And it was Eduard against Vyachenko. And you think, well, if we're so good at data, we should know how to attack that because we had the player on our books for like 3 years. We should have every ounce of data and we should be able to win that based on the data. But he played Eduard at the game. I could never understand it. He absolutely marked Eduard at the game. And tonight, when I'm looking at Lagerbielke, we should know all his faults. Why didn't Brendan Rodgers rate him? Why didn't we keep him? Because he didn't think he was good enough. Right? Well, exploit that. We need to exploit that tonight, JP.
No, absolutely. He's got if it was a computer game, he's got a massive like flashing question mark above his head, like if you're playing FIFA, like target that guy because you know what his weaknesses are. And the team and the squad all trained them, so they know what he can and can't do in training, and they know that whether he's not pacey enough or whatever, stick somebody on him and make sure that they've got the burn on him every single time. But is that stadium? It's basically got like a mountain next to it, and there's two stands that face each other, and then they've got a screen, so it's like built right next to. I suppose it's kind of like Dumbarton, but
I was thinking Dumbarton actually when you mentioned it there. But JP, honestly, you've inspired me on the back of all the positivity around a breakthrough. Let's call it a breakthrough last night with the club, and I hope that the meeting on Monday goes well. We'll obviously be speaking about it in detail. I hope to attend that meeting. I have asked to be considered, so hopefully I'm going to be there. If not, we'll talk all about it on the show.
I mean, that in itself, this is like a next level version of Jim Orr being at the presser for Brendan Rodgers. When you phoned Jim and said, "Oh, do you want to go to Celtic Park for the presser?" He was like, "Well, what the presser that every man and their dog wants to be at? You want me to actually be in the room?" Well, if you're in the room on Monday, then my God, like.
Well, it'll be, to be honest with you, it will either be myself or Jim if we're allowed. Because obviously there needs to be a limit, etc., and I totally understand it. But again, it comes full circle if Jim Orr walks in the room.
That's mad. That would be mad if it was him.
On that, by the way, JP, you love Friday nights. This is Acsom. Terry Cassidy. Oh my words, he is getting riled. He's getting riled because Celtic fans are throwing questions at him. He doesn't have the answer to half of them. The camera zooms in on him, and he's just at one point he's just like sitting like that, shaking his head.
Is this the footage that you've got?
Yeah, never before seen from December 1991. We ran episode 2 of this short series recently, and it was Joe Beltrami and Brian Dempsey were the high points of that particular meeting. This time round, it's chaired by Brendan O'Hara, who at the time was a contributor to Not the Views, now an MP. As well, and he's also been a film and TV producer and director. It just shows you if you work for Not the View, your career goes like that. Remember, we were talking about Frank quietly doing the poster, and all of a sudden he's working for Marvel.
Did the guys in the Joe Miller and Jerry and that, did they not say that Brendan O'Hara, he doesn't get the credit that he should get?
You did mention that, yeah. But I think probably a lot of these people just go away and... no, Brendan Sweeney. It was Brendan Sweeney. Yeah, so Brendan Sweeney was with Celts for Change, who were the movement that followed all of this stuff that we're covering now. But episode 4 is going to be a Celts for Change episode. And again, I've got unseen footage because somebody actually took a camera to the Irish rally and filmed it. And it's on a tape, and they sent it over to me, and we're going to actually use that footage as well. I love all this stuff.
Oh, by the way, on that, and you'll love this, it's music related, so apologies to anybody who hates that, but I got word from somebody.
To be fair, it's 1:15. It's 1:15 the 1 hour.
I got word this morning from a guy I know who is going to be potentially involved in the auctioning of the video camera that filmed the Oasis gig at King Tut's in 1993.
And is the tape also?
The tape. I'm pretty sure the tape would be part of it.
Oh wow!
So
what we're talking price wise for something like that?
Who knows? Who knows? When it comes to Oasis, there's pick a number. I don't know. But I just got the news of this morning. He texted me this morning, and I've got the email through. I've not looked at the email yet, but. We'll discuss it, and I think he's wanting to do like a kind of collaboration with King Tut's, like in terms of like the auction or whatever. So
that would look nice in a glass case, actually, in the venue.
Unlikely that we'll probably shell out the money that it would take to get that in the glass case at the venue, but it's cool. It's cool that someone has it. I love that kind of stuff, you know. And
I
so do
want
you.
to know. I want to know where the Wonderwall urinal went. I mean, I proved that it existed because there was a photo in an old laptop, but it did exist. Don't ask why people were taking pictures of the inside of the toilet at King Tut's. Anyway, thanks everybody for getting involved. I hope you enjoy the game tonight. I think there'll be more of a spring in our step as a fan base going into the game. I think it's lifted a bit of a cloud. Yeah, there's challenges ahead. This is just the next step, absolutely. But we can put it to the back of our minds this evening and enjoy the game. And I hope that we do get a positive result.
At least the door is open. At least the door is open. It feels like we've been banging on it, and we were at the point of going, right, well, there's no point in banging anymore. We'll stand from a distance and do what we need to do, because no one was answering it. And at least they've opened the door to dialogue with willing and smart and reasonable people and passionate people. Normally leads to some sort of breakthrough. So hopefully that is the case come Monday.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Enjoy the game, everybody that's going to it this evening. We will be live 30 minutes before kickoff. As always, thank you, every one of you, for getting involved. If you want to come and see us live, we have a gig coming up in Greenock where this guy, Chris Sutton, is pointing at you. He wants you to come along and see him. And ticket link is underneath the video. Greenock CSC, always a great night.
What's your bets on his costume? He's not going to pass up the opportunity to dress up as somebody or put a mask on or something like that.
That's a good question, that actually. Yes, we do. We've got a habit of doing gigs on the 31st of October, JP. I don't know what I'm dressing as, but come along. We could make it fancy dress, actually. I don't know if that would help boost or otherwise the ticket sales. Thanks,
get my Chris Boyd mask.
Yes, absolutely. Aye, the Scooby-Doo moment. Right, thank you, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you once again, JP Mason, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.